This morning, our brother Doyle talked about, he read about that the love of money is the root of all evil. And there's a warning in there for Timothy. He said, don't chase after it, because there's some bad things that can come when that's your love, when that's your desire. And so this morning, Jesus is going to teach us from Matthew chapter 6. If you have your Bibles, you can open up there, and appreciate Dean reading that for us. But where is your treasure? There's lots of articles that you can see, and it says that finances is a big stressor for us. Money is one of the biggest stresses that we have. It's one of the leading causes of divorce. I mean, sin is the leading cause of divorce. But the stress of money that she's a spender and he's not, or he's the spender and she's not, or none of us have money and yet we spend it like we've got it. So whatever, it causes stress. And it says one of the reasons that finances might trigger this anxiety is because in our minds, money is linked to survival. You've got to have money to have food to eat. You've got to have money for something to drink and a place to live and clothes to wear. And it said that when we feel that resource of money is scarce, when there's not enough, then it can actually make people feel like their survival is in jeopardy on a very primal level. And guys, when we are fighting for survival, it's like we don't think of anything else. It's like that is it. That's all I can think about, because money is linked to survival. And so it stresses us. It really, it's a reality. And Jesus knew that. And so one of the things is it says some of the common financial stressors that we have are concerns about, do we have any savings? What about job security? Is it there today, gone tomorrow? What about how much money I'm making, my salary? Lack of financial savvy, like I don't know what to do with this money. Debt, identity theft, wealth comparison. They've got more than I've got. Like all of these things are stressors that come in our life. Now, this was an article, and I wanted to say how not to worry according to the world. There's a report from BlackRock, and they said money is many Americans' top worry, ranking higher than worry of health, family, and work, according to a report from BlackRock. But here's their solution. But there is a cure, Jeanette, that's what they say. Focusing on retirement planning helps alleviate stress and improve your overall well-being today. So you know what? You're worried about money? Let's focus more on money. Yeah. Let's focus on retirement and just be better at. I'm not dissing. I'm not making fun of being good stewards of money by any means. If we plan, if we're good stewards, if we're taking care of our money. But that's not going to alleviate the stress of money, because you know what? People who have a lot of money, now they're stressing if the stock market's going down. They're stressing if they're getting stolen from. Now they're stressing about this and that. And, so there's always stress. It's like people who have a lot of money are living in gated communities with cameras everywhere. They're afraid that somebody's going to steal all of that money now. So there's always stress. That's how not to worry according to the world. But let's see how not to worry about money according to Jesus. Let's see what Jesus says. Jesus, as we just read in Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 34, he's going to give 4 solutions of how not to worry. Number 1, he's going to say, don't treasure up treasures on earth. Now, depending on your Bible, I don't know what yours says, but mine would say, do not store up treasures on earth. That's what mine says. I don't know what yours might say. But the actual word is the same word as this one. So these 2 words are actually the same in the Greek. So it says, do not treasure up treasures. It says, don't treasure up treasures. Don't store it. Don't be trying to gather it all up here on earth. Number 2, so he tells us what not to do. don't store up treasures, but instead do store up treasures, treasure up treasures in heaven. So we're just changing our focus. That's all it is. Remember how BlackRock said if you're stressing about money, then focus on retirement. You know what Jesus says? No, don't focus on this wealth, focus on that wealth. That's the focus. You're changing your focus. So these are the first two, what not to do and what to do. Number 3, what not to do. Don't worry about your food, your water, your clothing. What to do? Start seeking God first and His kingdom and His righteousness. That's how we can stop worrying about these money situations. That's the 4 solutions that are offered right here in Matthew chapter 6. But do you know what? All of this comes down to a choice. You have to choose not to treasure up treasures. You have to choose where to put your treasure. That's a choice that only you can make. God doesn't force you to do this. That's something that you have to believe that these words are true and they're helpful. You have to look at those and say, I believe that that's what the creator of the universe, my Savior, wants for me and is good for me. I believe that. And if I believe that, then I will choose to obey that. I will choose to live that way. So let's look at solution number 1. He says, don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy, and thieves break in and steal. Why? Why not store up treasures here on earth? Because, he tells us, moth and rust and thieves take it, destroy it. I don't know if you guys have ever had the holes that get in your clothes or in your blankets and stuff like that. You know, you could spend $200 on some really nice shirt or some kind of jacket, and man, it is super nice. And then this little moth comes in, and man, they just chews a hole in it. And then after a while, it's like, oh man, that got ruined. I spent all this money and now it's ruined. Or rust. Thieves break in and steal. You know, gold and silver, you know, these things rust and they go away, and thieves will break in and steal it. Like I said, you can have all this money, and now I have a nicer TV, and now I have a nicer car, and now I have a nicer, you name it, jewelry or whatever, and then people are stealing it. It's like now they steal it. And it stresses me that got taken from me. So Jesus says, don't worry about those things, because everything that we've got is wearing out or taken. It gets destroyed or taken. You know, JD, we were talking about this not that long ago. How sad. I don't know if you guys have had this happen at funerals. Somebody dies in the family. Jewelry's missing. Some of these family heirlooms that were so precious to everybody, and guess what? Where is it? It's gone. You know? People fighting over those things, and people take it. It's all gone. So Jesus said, don't worry about those things. And he says, the second reason not to store up treasures on earth, but to store up treasure in heaven, is because moth, rust, and thieves cannot take your wealth that's in heaven. So if you're worried about moth and rust and thieves destroying it or taking it, it's because I'm putting my treasures in the wrong place. If my treasures are in heaven, who's taking that from you? Nobody. Nobody is taking that from you. Now what worries do you have about somebody's taking my money and my items of value? Can't take it because it's in the right place. You see, so once my focus changes and where I'm putting my treasures, now I'm happy. Now I'm content. Now I have joy because, you know, you can't take that. You can't take that. That's already there. And that retirement plan always goes up. right? So the stock market goes up and down, but the one in heaven, never. Yeah, you'll always get that back in return, right? Number 3, why? Why? Why not store up treasures here on earth, but in heaven? Because your heart will follow where your treasure is. Wherever your treasure is, your heart will follow. Your heart is going to focus on those things that are valuable to you. You know, I don't know if you guys remember, but back in, they had pictures and articles back in 2008. I know for some that's like forever ago, but in 2008, there was a big stock market drop. I mean, the bubble burst on everything. It just seems like, and the suicide rates were just going off the charts because people had everything. Their treasures were in this stock market, and when it crashed, it was like they're like, my whole life is gone. You remember those, I mean, there's always fires, but it seems like several years ago, there was a lot of fires in California, and several mansions and really nice houses were burned up. And I don't want to, again, make light. It would hurt. I've never had a house burn up, and it would hurt. But I can remember the lady that was interviewed, and she said, my whole life was in that house. My whole life was in that house. That sounds like her treasures were here on earth, where moth and rust and fire destroy. Thieves break in and steal. But if this is not our eternal home, and if this is not our eternal reward, then you know what? It's in the right place, but your heart will follow where your treasure is. So if my heart is focused on my money, then when I wake up and when I go to sleep and I'm worried about money. And guys, this doesn't matter if you have a lot of it or a little of it. Because you know who thinks about money a lot? Those who have none. When I got no money, I am constantly thinking about money. Where am I going to get money? How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to get food? What is that? It's focusing on money. Because sometimes we're like, oh, the greedy and the rich, they're the ones who focus on money. Well, they may do that, but when I'm poor, I remembered, like, man, I'm every day, it's like, don't buy that, don't do this, because I'm constantly thinking about the money. And my heart is directed where my treasure is. You will follow where your treasure goes. If the stock market fell and you had nothing in the stock market, you're going to be like, oh, what happened? Oh, what dropped? You don't even know. But if my money is in there and I have treasure there, my heart is going to have some pull to those things and care. You see? Number 4, why not store up treasures on earth, but rather in heaven? Because your eyes focus determines the rest of your body. It goes hand in hand, I think, that wherever my eyes focus on, I tend to follow in that direction. I'm going to follow. My eyes, what I'm looking at. You guys have probably done this, man. I've been looking at this one vehicle. You know, I can remember when I was growing up, I thought the Pontiac Grand Am was the coolest car. You know, I had my eye on that vehicle. You know, I was like, man, I want that vehicle. And I can remember that when I finally was able to finally try to go get a vehicle, do you know what I had my eye on? Because I had my eye on it, my body went that way. Ended up at the dealership, and there was a Pontiac Grand Am right there, you know. And so that's the one that I wanted, you know. But your body will follow what you focus on. And if you've been eyeing those shoes, if you've been eyeing that house or those clothes or whatever, that's what my eye goes towards. My body will follow. So we've got to be careful. Where is your eye pointing? Where's your treasure? What are you pointing at right now? Because everything else is going to follow. Number 5, why not to focus on things on the earth? Because you can only have one master. You cannot serve God and money. And this right here is one of the ways that I think that our Sunday morning giving challenges us. Because when God says we give our money to the kingdom, and the bill collector says, no, I need your money, then which master are you going to obey? If you had to neglect one of them, if you had to neglect their bill collector or you had to neglect God, which one would you neglect? You see? I mean, which one loves me? Which one cares about me? Which one actually is going to take care of me? You know, I'm not saying that by giving money, God is going to love you more or take care of you more, but it's just it's a priority. It's a priority of just saying that these other things are more important to me. You cannot, Jesus says, cannot serve God and wealth. And that's why if our jobs are on Sunday and we're always missing, then is that the top priority? Is that the top priority? You know, I have to think about these things, that you cannot serve God and money. It doesn't work. So those are the things that Jesus tells us why. Remember, solution number 3, don't be worried about your life. Now you're like, what do you mean don't worry about your life? What I mean by that is what you eat, what you drink, and what you put on. That's what Jesus says when he's saying don't worry about your life. That's the context. So if people are like, well, I don't care about my life. No. That's again, what you eat, what you drink, and what you wear. That's what he's specifically bringing up. And then the fourth thing is, this is what not to do. This is what to do. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, then all of these things will be added to you. Now, what things? He says all these things. What things? What you eat, what you drink, and what you put on for clothes. All those things, if you seek first God's kingdom and his righteousness, then food, water, and clothing will be added to you. Does that make sense to you guys? That's a promise, right? So why then, if that's the solution, why don't be worried about life? Why seek first? Number 1, because life is more important than just food and clothes. That's what Jesus says in verse 25. Isn't your life more valuable than just food and clothes? Isn't life more than food and clothes? Like, have you ever thought that? Like, there's got to be more to life than just going to work, paying the bills, going to work, paying the bills, going to work. Isn't life more than that? It's more. But you're not going to act like it until your treasures are stored up somewhere else. You see, if I'm constantly just focusing on just living, God is not just trying to get us to survive. He's getting us to live. I came that you may have life and have it abundantly. A full life, a good life. You see, it's more than just surviving. Life is more important than just food and clothes. That's what Jesus says. Number 2, he says, because since God takes care of the birds, then he'll take care of you. He said, look at the birds. Little sparrow. Man, it doesn't matter if I'm at the jail. It doesn't matter if I'm in the middle of the desert or if I'm up in the mountains. Like, everywhere I go, guess what? There is a sparrow, like a little bird. And what Jesus does is he says, I want you to, do you guys pay attention to the sparrows out here? Does anybody really pay attention to them? Not very often. We don't pay attention to them, but he's saying, listen, if that's insignificant to us for the most part, we just don't really pay attention. Yet, if God pays attention and feeds something so small and insignificant, then a human who is made in his image, who Jesus died for, then doesn't it make sense that if he feeds that little bitty bird, that he will also feed you? So if he takes care of the small, doesn't it make sense he'll take care of the greater? That's how he wants us to trust him. He wants us to trust him. Since God takes care of the birds, he will take care of you. Number 3, Because worrying cannot add a single hour to your life. And the way Jesus says it is, does worrying add to your life? Does it add a single hour to your life? I'm worried if I'm going to be able to pay the bills. Worried if I'm going to get enough to eat. Does that add anything to your life? In fact, it takes away from our life. It actually takes away. You see, it can cause high blood pressure and ulcers and stressors that you start going through. People who are fighting cancer, one of the first things they'll tell them is watch what you eat, but also cut back on stress. It affects our immune system and all of those kind of things. So Jesus is saying, does worrying actually add anything to your life? And the answer is no. So worrying cannot add to your life. Number 4, why? Because since God takes care of the flowers, then he'll take care of you. Something so small, he says, you know what, they're alive today, and tomorrow they're gone. You buy some flowers for your significant other, right? Your nice flowers, and then it's like they're shriveled up and falling over dead in no time. So he's like, if God takes care of something so insignificant, it's here today and gone tomorrow. He says, you know what? Even Solomon, the richest man who ever lived, the nicest of clothes, he didn't even have clothes as nice as these flowers. And they're here today and gone tomorrow. If God takes care of those little flowers, then doesn't it make sense that he will also take care of you? Do you believe him? Do you trust him? Why? Because your Father knows that you need these things. And I think this is important. Notice what Jesus says, what you eat, what you drink, and what you wear. What does he call those things? Needs. Your Father knows that you need these things. I don't see in the Bible that air conditioning is a need. Does it make life more comfortable? Without a doubt. But you know what? There were a lot of people that were living right here at Salt River before air conditioning came in. There were people who were living down here in the desert before air conditioning was ever invented. So is air conditioning necessity? Is internet, television, cable, all of this, are those necessities? And yet what causes me sometimes to be stressed? Well, I've got to pay for my phone. I've got to pay for this. I've got to pay for that. I've got to pay. It's not a necessity. It's not a necessity. So your Father knows that you need food, water, and clothing. But here's his promise. Remember, this is a choice. If you seek first, this is priorities. Prioritize. If you will seek God first and his righteousness, his kingdom, then he promises to provide food, water, and clothing. Guys, read the whole Bible. Has he ever broken one promise? Ever? Not one time. This, you can take it to the bank. You can take it to the bank. If you will seek God first, you will have enough to eat. You will have enough to wear. And you will have enough to drink. You'll survive. I'm not telling you it'll be easy. There were times in the Bible that they went 3 days without water. That wasn't pleasant. But they didn't die. There were multiple days they went without food, but they didn't die. But did God provide? That's why he said, I want you to learn when you're at those deepest, hardest times that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Do you trust me? Are you holding on to my promise? I will take care of you. And if I stop worrying about these things, then what's going to happen to my spirit? Think I'll have a little bit more joy? Think I'll have a little bit more gratitude? Do you think I'll have a little bit more peace of mind? Because I'm not worrying about what these basic things are here. And number 7, because today, Jesus says, has enough troubles of its own. Tomorrow will take care of itself. How many of you guys in here have been promised that you're going to live till tomorrow? Anybody, have you read in the Bible that God promises you that you're going to be alive tomorrow? Anybody read that? There's no promise that you're even going to be alive tomorrow. There's no promise of that. So just worry about today. Because I know in our society, and the Bible talks about it, the wisdom of planning for your future. Planning for retirement, it does. It has some good things in Proverbs that talk about those things. But guys, if that's your priority, if that's your top concern, you might not even get to retirement. You might not even make it there. The Lord might come back before that time. So today has enough trouble of its own. Focus on today. So as we conclude here then, the 2 solutions of not to worry and understanding where is your treasure. Number 1, store up treasure in heaven. That's it. Store up your treasure in heaven. Choosing your focus of life on Jesus. By loving Jesus first, it makes everyone and everything else less than. Jesus is first, and it's like everything else just sort of, it's not as important. It's just not as important anymore because he is such a top priority. Secondly, you seek God, his kingdom, and his righteousness first. You must believe and have peace that God will provide. You trust that. That's why we live by faith, not by sight. That's our foundation, is we trust God. But you know what? He's not going to force you to do this. He's giving you his word. He's giving you his promises. But the choice is up to you. You have to choose that. And so I hope that as you look at this, as you think about where is your treasure, where is it that you are currently putting your top priority? If it's not God, I pray that you'll repent. I pray that you will change your mind right now, because you're missing out on the promises, the blessings, the peace, the joy that God has promised you. If you're not a Christian, then your priority is not Jesus right now. And so I would hope and I would encourage you that you would be willing to put your faith and trust in somebody who has never broken a promise and is offering you his kingdom. He's offering you his wealth and all of the riches of heaven. He's offering that to you if you trust him. Turn away from your old life and say, I want to put my hands in your life. You're willing to die in the waters of baptism, resurrected to a new life belonging to Jesus. He's my treasure. He's my treasure. If you've done that once, but you know I feel myself slipping away and you need the prayers, then you can come forward. We're about to sing a song right now. And if you'd like to come forward and need some help, do that right now as together we stand and sing.